Hello, hello. It's really an honor to speak about this for the first time, to speak about this in my home. This wonderful, wonderful conference. So thanks for organizing this. So my name is Jukka-Pekka Heikkilä, and with short introduction, we're going to find out from which angle this phenomenon is looked at. So I'm a very transdisciplinary scholar who is currently affiliated with Stanford and Harvard, and I've been working in Colombia at the University of Andes as a professor of entrepreneurship. The way I see the festival environment is that it is an extreme environment, and it comes from earlier ethnographic work when I lived in 5 years in North Korea and then 3 years in Lebanon, and that directed it towards this environment. And there, I don't claim that, for example, Burning Man is a walk around, no, but it's more of a high uncertainty event that we are now studying at. And the other project is we currently have going on in Aalto University in the Industrial Engineering Department, a project where we compared, together with Oxford University, the strategies of reactor futurized cutting-edge tech companies with Wikipedia and Burning Man. And the relevance for this all is I founded with a couple of friends a Burning Stories Science Art Collective, which studies transformative communities. And the way we see these events are also experimental platforms to try out different methods. What I mean by that is so essentially the talk is about this, and I'll put this as a circulation, and then we can familiarize yourself with this particular device. And the aim is that we look how to collect narrative data. And by the way, massive thanks, Catherine, for proper introduction. What are narratives? Like I can directly dive in. So what's the narrative data in this? How to collect it in these challenging settings? And then the other thing is what we do is explore new ways for the use of arts in data collections and in social sciences. It's rather one-way direction. We scholars just collect the data and that's it. You get a scientific paper. So this is what we do. And short disclaimer that it's data and part of its Burning Story Association. It's self-funded initiative and no contracted or required deliverables, which translates as a nerdy hobby. Yeah. So and for the next 15 minutes, there will be a short conceptual introduction of what we know about the research impact of these type of festivals, and then the development of the particular method to study this phenomenon, and then the final part is illustration of narrative data, how it can be disseminated, and then a few data prompts from total of 12 week-long events. So first of all, a definition of transformative experience. We are dealing with extremely high phenomenon, as we do know in this room, and there are a variety of definitions. I took one from Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy: Profound Changes in Perceptions, Beliefs, and Understandings of Oneself and the World Around. Experiences are often characterized by heightened sense of interconnectedness, a dissolution of ego boundaries, and deep introspective journey. So that with a festive setting is that this popularity of these festivals, and there is no common family of transformative festivals. In this particular case, it's the week-long events. For example, if you're familiar with Boom or Zora that happen in Europe, and Burning Man, week-long, that often participants consume psychedelics, but not always. And so that's the kind of umbrella concept of that. So why they become so popular? And it's about spiritual pursuit. About that includes socialization, togetherness, entertainment, and very often music and excitement. But especially it is a symbol of utopian ideals and freedom. Freedom from the system that we created, but now we have a kind of venting place, which seems to be these festivals. And they've exploded, like tickets to these events get sold out in minutes often. And they are 30,000 people, 70,000 people. Osora doesn't know how many participants they have. And we do not, well, we do not actually know what the popularity is because the current discourse is that festival motivation studies, they are pretty much driven by the marketing and consumer research. So how do these transformative experiences occur during a festival, and what type of impact they have on individual? This is a brilliant study. I highly recommend to read it. It's in Nature Communications. It has a setting of 6 field studies in week-long events and 22 online surveys done by a brilliant team based in Princeton University. And it's a rather large data set, 4,500 answers, pre, during, and after the event. And the main finding is that self-reported transformative experiences are common. They increase over the time spent in a festival environment. Perhaps not that surprising that the longer you are, the more your feeling of universal connectedness, new perceptions of others, and increased moral were the main findings. And what do we mean by moral? Is that it's treating others with respect, being honest, volunteering, and helping those in need. Well, how was this measured? And I think here is the beauty of it, beauty of field research. These were measured by putting participants to play a dictator game. So in the early stages of festival, you would be asked, like, would you help this stranger to this and this amount? And in the later stages, you would ask the same question, and that's how they found out of these kind of things, gamifying the whole process. And similar findings have been occurred from the earlier reports. And the surprising finding was that changes stay after the event, which was assumed that it's an event and then they fade away, but no. So why study this? Is personal motivation and also fellow colleagues. We did a project to Burning Man 2017, which was 50 people, completely strangers, different occupations, built a 120 square wooden dome with a satellite ground station where we took data from space and people could send messages to space. People ordered pizza, but nevertheless. And there, we didn't have any idea what we were doing. So, and when this happened, when we burned it, it's something clearly happened for many people, and it was hard to explain. And later I got messages that Jukka, time stopped. This is something perhaps let's look into it. And we looked into it and did post project interviews, and we found this concept of radical psychological safety, which was hiding in the participant stories. And it's published in Hallinnon Tutkimus, only as a Finnish, but feel free to check it out. And it kind of leads to, I think, very important question, needs to be also addressed within this room, is the role of a scholar. Like, does a scholar need to be embedded with the phenomenon, or is it better that the scholar is outsider? So what we had in data, when I looked at data, I simply saw management processes coming from that background and being co-lead of the project. Then a philosopher named Frank Martela, he looked at data, he just said, hey, Yuki, like, can't you see it? And I said, what? Yeah, that there is, that it's really, the psychological safety is there. And so it was hiding in plain sight because he wasn't affiliated with the phenomenon at all. So that is rather important when especially we look this type of narrative data. So getting towards the planet of stories, and why I use the word hidden is that it is pretty difficult to get grasp of them. And yes, I made intentionally very visual presentation, not perhaps so academic, but I hope it pleasures the eye. So first of all, the stories. Since the Stone Age, and probably when we could speak, is the stories and mass gatherings have developed human culture, and especially around the fire. So we know that knowledge transfers between individuals, it builds communal trust, and it creates institutions. And also that nighttime, there is the time that when culture is built, religions are built, and daytime has been perhaps for more complaining with the stories. So, how to access and study these insights of these powerful stories? We tried first with online form, failed. This was advertised, promoted in Instagram with 1 million followers. Nobody replied, and we got maybe 20, 30. Yeah, so it's very difficult. Well, then we also recognized that it results in a very biased data. because it's post-event, and obviously it can change a lot of the reflections and everything. So then when we started to figure out, like, okay, how can we collect when it happens? And that's why the device. And the device is the story sharing cube, and it has, when you look at it, it has what we label as hippie-proof user interface, which is you press a button, light comes off, you press a button, light comes off, and that's it. And so these can rotate around the event as wished, and also it has the GDPR statement, it has the more information, it's all combined in that small cube, and they have been rotating around the event or placed in camps. Unfortunately, many of them have been stolen in larger events, so now we just place them in if we are using this. And the data is shared back to the communities in text format, completely anonymized, and via art. So as an example, what we recently tried to do is, here is Black Rock City / Burning Man, where we pinpointed with the cubes that, okay, there's something really special going on at the deep playa, which is the deep desert on the right side. And so this year we iterated, and there was a design, needed to be designed like, okay, what type of design supports, creates an intimacy, because we know that story sharing needs intimacy, however, is not a venue for sleep or sex, because that's what happens in the desert, in the deep desert. So that there you see the result, and it works. It works. This is the it's very basic, and we call it science art. Some call it hippie trap or whatever. Like but it works. I guarantee it works. It glows in the dark. And the story collection device is bolted there, so it doesn't get stolen, and it manages to collect stories. And then recently there has been a master thesis on the device interface and design, which basically is that it's very Finnish type of design, that it's clumsy on its outlook, but it works as an engineering device very well. Yeah. So now we tried, there was a master thesis by Hilda Ruiz on this, and he figured out that this kind of a design could be perhaps more appealing for story sharing. And that's going to be tested in the future. So now total we have 200, which is the most recent data from this summer. So now the question, what type of content we have found from these type of events, and how have we used data so far? There is a pilot study about this in Dance Cult. We published that in 2019. It's more of a field report. And then now we can say, to conclude, that there is a very diverse type of stories. Burns are clearly more radical than other type of festivals, because they function on a much more radical principles or philosophies. Overall, the data is unusual. It's very sensitive. It's very emotional compared to what at least I have personally done with interviews. And around 20% is usable. That's an important thing to say. Like, majority is just like very far out and nonsense. Yeah, it's just like it's unusable. But it happens when people get excited with the cube. So it's and it's definitely, the data itself is not valid for generalizations by far. No. Because, and also we don't ask any demographics or anything. So it's need to be very careful on doing any far-reaching generalizations about the data. Well, what we managed to do is artist you might be familiar with, Mikko Heikinpoika. He made it's called Love and Acceptance. It's based on a piece recorded in Borderland, and then he made a music piece out of it. And it's something that it was a successful pilot. Then the other one is what has been done is with the narratives, when they are uploaded, anonymized to a forum, and then we hope that people discuss about them, and then we can study with scalable online platform, like what do people discuss, and how do they possibly evolve. So that's one way of doing it. And then here is an impact set to the community, is the case of Burning Man, cultural course connecting, which happened that this particular story, where an artist described that it's not, he's not welcome to the art cars. And this was very shocking revelation in one seminar for the Burning Man CEO, and he wrote this posting, and it ended in this cultural correcting posting 2019, which the New York Times news that it convenes culture boot camp for wealthy. That it's these kind of small stories can have an impact. That's the story of this, although it wouldn't still have a scientific impact so far. And then lastly, I wanted to include this word. The word of the year is hallucinate, and it relates to AI, which is we have now ongoing and forthcoming, which is psychedelics, is that we look for looking at the stories to put them into semantic story mapping, dynamic data clustering, interactive topic modeling, and advanced query and comparison. And we are not going to any details on this, but feel free to contact in 2 or 3 months. We know much more how these have been blended with AI, and I think it's very exciting to see what comes out of this experiment. So finally, let's look a bit of few data prompts. What do we have? So from BlackRock City, Deep Layer this has, although it's unusual, it has so much content in it. Yesterday, 4765.0, we've landed on a strange planet with creatures out here wandering. Weird style, it's okay. They are all high, but they will not know who we are, because now we also experience transformation. We will start to blend in. Like if you look at that sentence, like there is so much going on in that. Well, like without any questioning, but like in terms of narratives, it's that obviously like blending in with the community and also like having the distance and this and so much. And so this is one example that is rather informative. Then a borderland, and these type of stories we have quite a lot, which is that here I have felt that a burn is some kind of portal that opens collectively within people and within the group. Like me, for example, this year, also last year, I'm tuning into part of myself, which is really, really dominant and initiating and manipulating people's emotions. We get this quite a bit, which is the ego tripping and also people declaring themselves as gods. And that kind of like, it happens often, fairly often, it seems, in burns. And here ending with ketamine now, I feel like I have the magic powers that might be, that I'm able to control reality. That's a heavy statement, but cannot disagree if that happens. And this is in a burn type of event, which is my personal favorite. Is I was eating yogurt. Once it was finished, I put a spoon in the yogurt bag. The spoon was looking out of the yogurt and it fell to the side. Like the thing crashed and it was on the ground. At this point, I was like disappointed in the universe. Like, why would they even create such thing? I don't understand it. That's the story. What does life even mean? Like so this type of it's really and what I'm trying to say with this is that the work of a scholar is we are dealing with very serious projects, serious environments, but also like it can be also fun. And it's I highly recommend these type of projects if it's possible. In Boom, it goes towards more of your presentation where it seems to be a lot of dealing with love and a very heavy, in a way, the communal aspect is present in basically every story, and there is a lot of love and giving hope. That's also a recurring theme, is that how the participants receive hope. And the last story is that it's rather long, but it has a lot of information. First, there is a small statement about psychedelics, and then the feeling of hope, just if we could find a way to achieve that in everyday life. And then I think it's quite remarkable is that the participants share is on the behalf of autistic community that he wishes that these type of issues could be perhaps addressed. And so these kind of data, and I could go on for a long, but I'm going to finish with this slide, is that now the target journal on this whole, what you just experienced, is in Journal of Field Studies, and the methods experienced are leading towards an installation, lessons learned, which is optimized for extreme environment, narrative data collection, so that it's safe and inspirational at the same time, and ideally built to Amazon jungle, where I have emerging research project with ex-FARC combatants on peace building. So on that these experiments are leading clearly to that. So big thanks, it's fun and it's quite serious, and yeah, thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much. So I think you were the first with the hand up.
Okay, thanks for sharing on your fascinating research. One thing that keeps bothering me when we talk about transformative experiences is that we so often focus on the immediate effects, and you also mentioned here that you might get less biased results when the passing of time has not clouded how people view those experiences. But I've often found myself thinking that when we talk about the impact of psychedelic experiences, I understand like practical reasons also for gathering like immediate reactions from people, but I would be so interested in hearing more stories about how the effects of psychedelics or transformative festivals affected people looking from the vantage point of 20 or 30 years. Of course, like I know that this takes 20 or 30 years to do from now, but still, because of the way that transformative experiences affect what we value, especially like acutely, immediately. I think it's quite difficult to actually get a sense of how this will impact the person in a longer term. And therefore, just your comments on that. Yeah.
I'm happy to comment on is that was the study that I showed by the Princeton team in Nature Comms. It's exactly addresses it. I probably think that they will have a follow-up. Like it's so big data set, and it's fascinating that they found out that the changes stay instead of like like if we look at these stories and what people are experiencing. Let's hope that certain changes that the people are experiencing do not stay, like when people might declare themselves as gods or something. Like it's also looking at it from that, but definitely on point on that following it longitudinally is something that we need.
Yeah, just a brief follow-up. So one concrete example, for example, people say that I'm never going to smoke again, and they're totally confident, and then after a month, it's gone. So yeah, that's why it's
yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, very true.
Yeah, Antti.
Thank you. Getting data also from like underground ceremonies, like people are having here in Finland many ceremonies. Have you thought of maybe collecting data from those, either from Finland or other countries?
Feel free to contact me. Let's make it happen.
Thank you for the very interesting and also entertaining presentation. I was wondering, with the story collecting and the data collection, what was the precise like wording kind of like for the instructions for people to use these like story cubes? Because I was thinking that, especially as for someone who's maybe in the midst of their psychedelic experience, like even a singular like keyword can like guide where their mind goes quite well. So I was thinking like how kind of like how this is affecting maybe the data as well, like if people are going to a very certain direction, and also maybe if we would have in one festival like cubes with different instructions as well, like would we get different data, like what is the connection here? I was just wondering. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very spot on question, and we've been wondering it quite a lot. Once the cube reaches you, you'll find out what was the attempt to Borderland Festival. But it really varies, and it's kind of depending on when we talk about, could you share a meaningful experience? Could you share something that mattered to you? We do not wish to, we wish to keep the language very simple, use as little text as possible in order exactly to enable that experience. So that's what we came up with. And that the small print is here. It's still there, the GDPR and websites, if you need it. But if you're indeed in the middle of something, you are not going to be interested on GDPR on that state. No. But it's simply also, we give the trust that indeed the data is safe. And persons never we do not ask any personal information, and we always clean the data out of voice and names. And so it's that what we make sure. Good question.
Have you ever considered to have like a person to give instructions instead of the written instructions?
Yeah, we tried it. It doesn't work that well. It needs to be a very intimate space, quiet space, private space. If you are sitting next to it, it creates clearly a setting of expectation. It's not like it's very different. Yeah, but it's surely better data with that. Like this is rather an anarchistic experiment in that sense. Like no guidance, like as little guidance as possible. Yep. Please.
Thank you for the presentation. I was wondering, could you talk a little on the applications of this sort of data? Like you collect all these fascinating and often very bizarre stories, and you said that only about 20% of the stories are whatsoever usable. But about those 20%, what are they used for? Could you talk about some of the most fruitful applications, perhaps some examples from the past or something from the future that you could see this data being used for?
Yeah. I guess the data becomes more useful once it can be fed to AI more, because it doesn't like it's there are like really sometimes it's simply like kind of animal sounds and like simply doesn't like there's a lot of that doesn't make sense. Let's put it that way. But like the main goal will be surely is the studies on field reports in dance cult and that kind of what we already done, and then the AI front, and also like the most relevant ones obviously like if we can then patch that there is something in the unknown 80%. It's just a reference estimate. Text snippets to the communities and to everyone interested, and so we learn as we go. Yeah.
Could the cube maybe talk, or maybe the instructions could be in English or in other languages, because you can always read really well on, and maybe there can be one day like AI, like it would like interact with you.
Yeah. We had we have technical in that sense, but it requires substantial amount of funding. And Konensäätiö, IT-kulttuurirahasto didn't bore with that, so need to wait with that. But yeah, tech is indeed like reading. When you read the small text, like it is like it's still and the main text also. It requires that indeed you focus and put you in a setting with machine. I'm sure it would be more easier.
If I may ask a question myself,
Yep.
With all the reports, what are you going to do with them? Like, what is the research question that you are going to answer, and how are you going to analyze the data to answer the research question?
As I said, like in this is, let's put it there, is on basically with the data itself. Like it's, for me personally, for example, it's secondary because that's something we can play with arts, because usually we just take the data and we publish it in scientific journal, and we do not give anything to the participant communities, and that I think is brutal in that sense, and this is simply explore that, and also the method itself, how it evolves, so that the data itself is more valuable for arts and the communities. Is something, because it doesn't have demographics and all of that, and we would need contact details, we would need all of that in terms of it being like really rigorous social science study. So in that sense, the data is a vehicle to the other means.
Yeah, I see. I was thinking of something like narrative or hermeneutical interpretation of what is happening in this transformation, or something like that.
Yeah, that surely will come on this.
Yes.
Yeah, that we are going to ask machine, like, okay, what do you make out of this? Yeah, and that's like this is all has come to us within a year, and it's quite mind blowing that we now have this kind of tech assist us, and let's see where it takes us, and it's exciting at the same time when you see this AI emerging. Be assured we are not taking any responsibility, what it will be and what it will speak about, because like we do not know.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this fascinating and innovative talk.
Thank you. Pleasure.